So we'll get to know each other. Elizabeth, can I borrow that timer? No, I'm kidding. I know I'm standing between you and the break. I know that we had lunch, so everybody gets a little down, but I promise to keep this engaging and move it along and make a really good presentation for you. So what I love about what we heard today is that there is just so much of a plethora of organizations and people and things that are happening, resources that you can attach yourself to make those wheels of international tourism turn. And I feel like what the part that I bring in, much like Scott said, is that, all right, so we're all here for international tourism and we utilize the travel trade as that go-to so that they can put the visibility and reach on our destination, crusa. And so how do we work best with them, right? And so there's a lot of you here as DMOs. And so I'm mainly speaking to you because I know you struggle with getting your hotels or your attractions or your tours. I'm so happy that Genevieve is here from Fogo do Chá because every visitor must eat, and I say that all the time. And having a restaurant group in the room is really, really important. But it's so important to get everybody involved. So those of you that are businesses, I'm talking to you too, but don't feel like this isn't for you, because sometimes I'm in a room where it's all the individual tourism businesses. Today, it's mainly the DMOs. So I do go quick, and if you have a question, don't be afraid to ask it. We will have Q&A at the end. My name is Jennifer Ackerson, Elon Tourism Solutions. I started my business back in, like 2000. And I have just always been adept. I started in CVB, then I was in hotels, and I worked for attractions, and I kind of covered the gamut, right? Like we used to do in tourism, maybe we still do. But the point is that I learned about the trade in all the different verticals. So what I bring to you today is literally things that I've learned that make the wheels turn in individual tourism businesses and destinations to be effective partners to the trade. So that's exclusively what we're doing. And in 2015, I started working with NYC Tourism and Conventions, Fred Dixon, the CEO there, and he said, Jen, I love what you do. Make us a program. So I made the program. And so that program still is alive for 8 years. We run it every year, even during COVID. And then it's called Tourism Ready. And then I partnered up with IITA, Lisa Simon, who's got that hammer in my vision. But we partnered together to bring this Tourism Ready program nationally, right? And so all of the destinations, New York, DC, Virginia, wherever we are, we all have needs to be better partners. And then the COVID COVID did not help, because now we have a whole new industry of people. How many of you are new to this industry? Some hands? Ooh, I love it. Most of you are here for a long time. But anyway, so the program is something that's available, and thank you, Scott, and your team, because I think this is like the 4th year in a row that we're working with you. I loved how you said that you do the online and virtual meetings before COVID, because you were the first virtual presentation I ever made, and I'm used to talking to a crowd. So when he said you have to do this virtually, I was like trembling, and it sounds so weird because I definitely got over that, but it's a switch for me. So some of what I'm showing today, because it's quick and we're just making points, and then the real guts of this presentation is how to make those appointments that you have coming up most effective, is that I'm going to put thoughts in your head. It's not to take away for the meetings because it's just too close to them. But in your destinations or in your businesses, in your Hilton, are you feeling the shift in business? Because during the pandemic, domestic business was really good, and in New York and everywhere, we are experiencing this amazing business. So some of our partners to the travel trade have fell off scope, right? They're not interested in international anymore. Yes, it's coming back, but they want to wait till it gets here. Well, guess what? When you work with the travel trade, you have to do things in advance, and you have to be ready in advance, and you have to be a good partner. So you really do need to think about it now and appreciate that they've come from overseas to be with you. And with the receptive operators that make up IITA, International Inbound Travel Association, they're the ground handlers for all of that business coming. So we need to be good partners to them. So there's a bit of an in-between where we are with that pandemic business and the international coming back, but there's steps to take in place. I don't do stats, but I like to point out just 2 slides of things. This is the slide of domestic business, meaning the business that we've all been getting, now trending overseas. So you can see in some cases, and you'll have this deck so you can all look at it, but it's surpassed what it was in 2019. So some of that, what I sometimes call fat and happy business that we had, the domestic, during the pandemic and right after it, those people are now on planes going elsewhere. They're going back and resuming their travel worldwide. So there is this lag and there is this difference. I bring up New York because I'm there, but I also bring it up because they're kind of a barometer for the whole country. And our hotels are literally having a down grade in their ADR as well as their occupancy rates this summer and into the fall. Internationally, we know where visitors spend money. We've heard so much from our great partners at Miles and Brand USA and United States Commercial Service about where people spend money, but I feel like this is a good slide for you as destinations to share with your partners, meaning your hotels, attractions, restaurants, tour companies. And I love that slide about that people are traveling now on their experience, because I work with a lot of tour companies and they are the essence of why people travel. And a lot of them are not ready to work with the trade, but people are coming for them, right? Then they pick where they're staying, is what we heard. So showing them where the international visitor spends their money is a really important piece of getting engagement from your stakeholders in your destination. Again, theoretically, I feel like when we work with the travel trade, we have to commit. We have to like say, we're in this and we're doing this, because people try to get in and get out in a year, it didn't work, and they have all these different things that they come up with, which I hear as a presenter a lot. But theoretically, to get them committed, to get them compliant with readiness, and then to perfect the travel trade partnerships that we're going to have tomorrow and Wednesday. So just a quick thing on each of these slides. I'm really going to run through these because then I'm going to get to the part about your actual appointments. But when I'm speaking to DMOs, and we call them TPAs in New York, tourism promotion agencies, it's really getting your stakeholders to understand that it's not that B2C and it's that B2B, and there's just a different mechanism. There's a different intricacy in working. There's different things that happen in being a good partner to the travel trade. And it dictates so much more of what they do in their marketing and sales life that's different than advertising to the consumer. So I'll dig a little bit into this as we get to the appointment part. Here's the piece that, like, I don't know if everyone thinks about this. This is a question I never asked, but I just thought of. But when we think about how visitors arrive from travel trade, they either come as FITs, meaning individuals, or they come as groups, and you all know what groups are. I'll go back for anyone new. FIT is your individuals that buy their product and services in advance. And then we have the MICE business, or the meetings business, right? Incentives, congresses, and all that. But when you think about working B2B, and now you couple that with how the visitor arrives, that dictates a real lot. It dictates what products, right? Because we're going to talk about bookable and sellable product in a moment. If you're creating product for FIT, it's different than product for groups, and it's very different for the MICE visitor. So when you're helping your stakeholders to get ready to work for the trade, when you or they sit in the appointments in the next 3 days, 2 days, they have to be talking in terms of FIT, group, and DMC or MICE business. Does that make sense? I never asked that question. Uh-oh, no one's raising their hand. A couple nods. But it's really an important piece. So when we talk about product, right, and what we're selling, as a DMO, you don't have product, you have the destination. And so you're selling why to come here, which is great, but you need your partners, your stakeholders to have the product. So just using the FIT group and MICE theory that I just presented, and we look at American Affair, who's here and meeting with us in the next 2 days, you can see the way their websites are positioned to their own clientele. And I used 2 product examples from companies that are here that you'll be selling to in the next 2 days. But if you look on any of their websites, 90% of them are going to have how they sell to their visitors, right, or their B2B partners as FIT, as group, and DMC. So on the left here, I can't even see it on my small screen, so I don't know if you can see it there, but it's all about the fly drives and the self-drive programs where they land in DC or BWI, get in their car and visit, right? And then the group piece and the rest of it. Same with ATI. I'm pointing this way, but there's nothing here. the country roads, byways, waterfalls, and adventure, if your suppliers don't have product, or as we were talking, Genevieve, today about having FIT Group and DMC product, or the aquarium, or the rest of you that are here, then the travel trade can't go and sell that, right? So they can promote a destination, but they're not in business to just promote destinations. They're in business to sell products and services. So the goal is the things I teach you today, or we mentioned today, are just high level, really targeted, succinct points of what we have to be helping our stakeholders with. I do this every day of my life, and we have some amazing stories of how people have come through this kind of training and done a really good job. Another piece is the difference between international and domestic. I talked about that slide where the domestic was going out, but I find that even in New York City, it's hard for some of the properties that are still doing well in certain areas to put their heads around the international again. And that's troublesome because even though they come for the experiences, they need to sleep in a bed. So Hilton, thank you for being here. Because if you're not here as hotels and your hotels are not part of this, then we can't have them come for the experience part. So just a couple things about international that helps you allow them to feel the energy you have and the motivation to be an international market is that they come different times of the year. They fill those seats and those beds and your tours when domestic is not there, because they come midweek and maybe you don't need them on the weekend, but you need them midweek. And so there's all different attributes. We talked today about the 4 to 6 weeks vacation that some of you get. I know Elizabeth had a whole month off in August. But it's really important to discern for your stakeholders the difference. And there's so many points. I'm going quick today, so I'm not going to get into them all, but I'm happy to share. But there's so many different points to international versus domestic, to the advantage of working with that international market. Not to mention that we don't use travel trade and we don't use travel agents in this country, but I love my Flight Center example there because, as a wholesaler in Australia, they have 2,800 offices. They have 19,000 employees. Like, it's a big deal. But here, we just go direct with everything, so we don't put our thinking caps on the same when we're marketing as those that travel differently. The value when you go into your appointments today, and for those of you that are stakeholders or tourism businesses versus a DMO, it really comes back to that commitment that I just mentioned, having the understanding that you have predictability and control and how the business comes, that there's that network. You're here, all of you, because you know that, so I won't delay on this slide. But these are good points when you're even trying to go to your own management to say, I need money to market internationally. And that happens to be one of our challenges for all of us. This is a simplified version of the distribution channel. I love how Chris from Miles today had that plethora of all those companies, because that's really how it looks. But I couldn't teach and explain all of that, so I made a very simple grid that I tell my clients and my stakeholders to use. But if you look at the international consumers at the top, they wind up at all of you at the bottom by going through the network. And this is important when we get to pricing in a moment. So really important that we understand that there is a network. We didn't make it up. None of us here, crusa didn't, Alon or IITA didn't. It exists. It's just how you navigate, how you work with the trade. A couple more slides and we'll get to the appointments. Visually, I like to look at things. So as TPAs or DMOs, sometimes it's like you can tell someone something, right? Probably if some of you have kids, this makes sense. They don't hear you. They don't understand it. They don't know why you're saying it. But when someone else says it, like me say, or you look at something visually, all of a sudden you get it. Right? So I use visual slides to sometimes have, like, we had a hotel only meeting with crusa properties, but sometimes to get the point across in your own organizations or in your destinations and showing things visually, this is how we get millions of visitors. People will start to listen, and then when we get to the part where they implement and change how they work, then that part will be so much easier, right? So it's that mindset first and then the implementation. Let's go there. So just a couple slides here on the implementation, because first of all, most of you are TPAs, so I have my own slide for you. But I want to talk to the aquarium and Genevieve over there and my friend at the National Aquarium and the rest of you. I shouldn't call you all out, sorry. Sometimes I do that. But the tool that perfectly pitches how to work with the trade, and I know it's too late to get it ready for tomorrow, but when you answer the questions of who, what, when, where, why, and how, because a third-party seller is the one that is selling your product, right, your hotel, there's things they need to know that you would never share with the consumer, right? So if you get that onto your one-sheeter, as I know Scott calls them, or the business profile, or the one-pager, it changes the dynamic of the appointments. So hopefully you all have a one-pager. I know we're trying to get low on printing paper and all of that, but it literally is the tool that Travel Trade used to understand you and then load you for booking, right? So again, not a deep dive, but who, where, when, I said it the wrong way. Who, what, when, where, why, and how is really going to change. And the process that you go through to create this, or your stakeholders, is how you learn to work perfectly with the trade. Again, another slide. I have lots of information. Scott knows I could talk up here for a couple hours, but I won't. I'm almost done. Being travel trade friendly does not just mean your business. It means all of us, all of you, and everyone. And it's too often where we are very centric to our four walls in our business, or a tour company, or a hotel, or what have you. And we have to expand that vision, because when the visitors come, as we know, they're traveling throughout the capital region and going from one to the other. So these are just little icons that show the things that are important. I do a lot of interviews with the inbound operators and overseas operators through IITA, and I ask them, what are the things that are important to you and destinations that they know? And sometimes they're not what we think. Yes, they want to know that Kent Island is this amazing place that I just learned from my friend Gigi, but they want to also know, well, how long does it take to get there? Is there a tour guide there? Do they take buses, and can I park the bus? You know, so all of these things here listed are super, super important for travel trade. So this slide alone for your meetings is good. Talk about the seasonality. Do we only come here in the fall and the spring and the summer? Is winter got something here? Or sometimes botanical gardens are more beautiful in the winter than they are in the summer, or as beautiful, maybe not more beautiful. So thinking about, and then it goes as a destination too, and I think you're all good at this because you are the capital region and you're already joined, but thinking about where they go next and where they were before, because that timing is super, super important. Operationally, it goes back to FIT group and the MICE market. And the reason I say this, and I weave this into the points, is just that this brings clarity for your stakeholders to the tour operator, so they know that the stakeholders know how to work with them. It would be the perfect thing for a DMO or a TPA to go to a show like this and be able to have a list of their ready partners. But they can't always do that because there's not enough ready partners. So that's the goal. And then operationally, if those businesses know how to work with the trade, we're going to have success. The rates is just something to touch upon. It's different for each category. So whether you're an attraction, a tour company, a hotel, a restaurant, it's different, but you have to have net rates for those different tiers. And if your stakeholders as DMOs don't have that, then they can't work with the travel trade, because in that slide that Chris showed us, they're all selling to one another, and there's a distribution channel. So there has to be a profit margin for each of the trade levels. It's a super important part of why travel trade business comes to a region or not. We won't deep dive on it, but it's there. Are you the only hotel? Was there another hotel? Okay, I'm a Hilton Diamond member, so I love Hilton, so I'm going to really call you out. But and today you can't keep track, because I was like, we're here at a Westin. Did I see something about Marriott Bonvoy as the owner of property in the hotel? Yes, so it gets so confusing, but I love that. Anyway, accommodations. This is such an important piece, because as we said, as DMOs, if you don't have properties that are ready to work with the trade in all those ways I just said, we can advance international tourism. My job that Scott has, had me come here for is to kind of talk about the things that are important to the trade. So when we look at the properties, they've all got different management groups or their boutique properties, and everyone fits in. I have a B&B that lives on Long Island, that I live on Long Island that the B&B is at, and they have 3 rooms, and they have made this market work for them in their need periods, which is midweek, like Monday, Tuesdays. And the whole town noticed that the Germans are all of a sudden everywhere. Where did they come from? And it was New World Travel. And it was like, because they figured it out, right? So my only thing to say is that there's different ways of working. We can't all go down one route. There is, and in this slide, it depicts having static rates, which mean rates that are available to the trade so that they can sell in advance with a package. And my friends from Europe can tell us, I believe, that there's truth in advertising in European countries, and they can't put a package on sale for $2,500 that next week is $3,700, or vice versa. So you really have to be having rates that allow international tour operators to sell you, and then take that dynamic process that's part of technology and the movement forward and attach that on, and your dynamic rates will actually sit higher. So that might be a little much for everyone, but it's something to know, because this is really what's preventing some destinations from being able to deliver properties that can work with the trade. All right, let's go to why we're here today, and I think we're doing good on time. 3 o'clock, perfect. I'll be done before that. We'll have time for questions. So what is the most, I always make all these notes and then I never even look at them, but I'm actually going to look at them now because I don't want to miss anything, because I think this is so important since you're walking into appointments right now. While I'm looking, who has a question? A thought? A comment? Jen, slow down. Jen, stop talking so fast. Anything? Nothing. Guys, get up and do a little run because you're cold. Yes.
Most of our biggest challenges is getting hotel partners.
Yeah.
And offer FIT rates, and especially when we need to get properties, and you have all those OTAs and hotels, doesn't even know how to sell domestically, let alone trying to sell products and start running hotel beds, Bonitel, TripAdvisor, and all the other things, Adam. It's too confusing for them.
And that's why we have this program, honestly, Rich, because it is confusing. The world is moving faster and faster. Who was I just talking about? We were saying the summer flew by. We used to have July and August was a little bit slower. The business was here. We could break. Can't anymore. We just keep going. So we have to figure it out, though, right? Because in the end, it is pretty simple to get the long haul visitor to us. We go through this network, and how I work this with the destinations and the companies that I work with, because I literally am working, I have clients that are some of you as businesses, is to do your homework, right? To look online. All travel trade are not OTAs. OTAs can actually displace your business that comes through your gate, through your front door, through your retail. So there is a job to be done, and we already have 12, but you have to do your research and figure this out. And the inbound operators that are part of International Inbound Travel Association, they are the core group, I believe, if some of you will agree, that they are the ground handlers for the rest of the world, so you don't have to work with so many tour operators. A lot of, and this will be in my notes now for how to be ready, but when you sit down and you meet with the international tour operators, ask them, which receptive operators do you work with? Even America As You Like It does some bookings direct, but a lot of bookings through receptive operators, right? So to simplify the network, Rich, would be that work through your inbound operators, do your research on their websites, ask questions, right? Don't just take bookings. Sometimes I have clients and they say, oh, so-and-so called, and I'm going to give them the receptive rate because they promised me 5,000 passengers this year. You've heard it, right? It happens. But no, who are they? Where do they fit in the distribution channel? And give them that rate. If they do crazy sales for you, maybe you'll talk next year. But I hear you. I know it's a challenge, but that's why we're delivering education programs. That's why you can ask questions, do the websites, and then work with the inbound operators who are the specialists in working with the international market. Lisa, anything on that?
Just to note that one of the sessions you did virtually for Capital Region was specifically with the hotels, to try to bring them all up in their knowledge of this market.
Yeah, and we'll offer those in the future because there is a lot of turnover in hotels, and we understand that. So we just need to make those part of our regular offering on our education side.
Cool. All right, and I love the questions because they really do get deep into things. But let's say now you're walking into your appointment, right? What are the most important things? So we've heard and we hear all the time, partnership. If there's partnership, there's success, and that's so true. But so I think the part of it is the selling of the destination. That's what you're being paid to do. So obviously doing that. But then what are the things that I can do for you to make your life easier? And they might be the ones that tell you, do training, or can you explain net rates better? You know, I'll give a quick example. I went to CIDA, they want performance groups, and I said, when I go back to my suppliers, and I work for the American Museum of Natural History, and I tell them performance groups, they don't know what I'm talking about. Lay it out for me, Mr. Tour Operator. And they did, and they told me that you need chairs when there's a band, and you need, you know, this when it's a choir, and they explained this whole thing to me. So ask that tour operator what it is that they need. In fact, the program that you're all part of right now was because of Garrett at ATI saying to Lisa, can you get help for this destination? They keep coming to IITA Summit and telling me how wonderful their destination is for 5 years, but there's no change in booking patterns. There's no way to book anything in that destination. And literally, that's how this whole thing began. So I hope it's helping. I think sometimes I make it worse. I hope I'm not doing that, but only because I'm shedding light on some of the issues that we do have. So being able to support that tour operator and give them a partnership that's meaningful is important. And I would also ask them about their strategies for promoting you, because there's different tactics that come into when a tour operator is putting its limelight on Capital Region. For instance, they may want to do promotions. You might bring that back to crusa, or you might bring it back to the DMO, or you are the DMO, but they might have different strategies in what's happening in their market. And even though we got the great overview from the commercial service offices and the representatives, they have other knowledge that they can tell you that is working for them. I love the point today about prices are higher, but tour operators are making more money. So they're okay with that. And if their visitors are in demand to visit our country and they're willing to pay it, great. Let's just get net rates on the higher prices, right? So we still have that same issue, but the rising prices isn't as big of as an issue. Let me just see if I have anything else there. Is there anyone here who's completely new to working with the trade? I know somebody in the front here or somewhere. Yes, okay. So afterwards, I can absolutely help you. I don't want to drill down on points too much. All right, so does that make sense? Partnership, asking them what they need, understanding it's a different way of doing business, and really being for them. And then certainly as an individual supplier, I feel like half your presentation should be that, not necessarily what you have to say, but what they have to say, because you'll learn a lot. Second most important thing today is really this thing about how prepared you are in your business and the needs that you have, and then that travel trade operator has. So this goes back to a story, a quick one, about a hotel that I was working in in the Hudson Valley before the pandemic, but they saw this market as an opportunity. They met me, they said, oh, I want to work with the trade. And so what they did was brilliant, I feel like, and maybe this is a story you as DMOs can share with your properties, but they went through each week of the year and they figured out the demand periods, right? They should know that anyway. That's what the revenue managers are supposed to be doing and are doing. So figure out when those those need periods are. And I would literally advise to bring that for any of you, including DMOs, because you have need periods, to the buyer and let them know when you want the business or need the business. And it's okay to tell them that you can't take business during other parts, because then they won't bother you or they won't launch a campaign that's not going to work, right? So like, we don't think in selling like tell something negative, but it is really important to say what's good and what's bad and what's ugly and what doesn't work, because then you'll have a better partnership. You know, I have so many clients that say, oh, well, we have this process that happens when they arrive, or, you know, we really don't have a place for the bus. Tell them that so they can do their own research on where to go. And so there's all different things that you need to share as DMOs or individual businesses with the trade, and it's not always glamorous. Does that make sense? Like, it's really important. It'll make you have a better partnership. They'll know you're being honest, they'll have more trust in you, and they'll help you solve problems. To boot. And that comes down to being open to different ways of working together, because sometimes together as partners, you solve those problems. You know, and I've seen that happen. I work with a restaurant in Times Square where you can't stop the bus in front of his very large restaurant. So groups tend to not go there because they either get ticketed, they get hit, somebody hits them or something like this. So they figured out a place that was safe to drop the group. The escort or somebody from the restaurant would come out, meet the group, and bring them in, and then they went up on 30th on West something and parked the bus. They did that together, and the group business increased. So all little ways of making things happen when you're talking to your travel operators the right way. And everything goes back to FIT group and DMC or mice business for these reasons, right? Because there's a different way to work. So here, we'll do these quick. A successful appointment looks like this. Again, it's about the relationship. I feel like sometimes just getting to know the operator the first time is the best strategy. Right? And you can get the follow-up done on a call afterwards or a Zoom, and just get to know them, get to feel, you know, who you are as a business partner and all of that. It's so important. I also work and I coach a lot of different people to do sales calls, and they tend to go on and on and on and on like I am now. But they have, if you can focus on 3 selling points, right? Whatever they are, you will streamline that conversation for your follow-up, because you'll say, remember I told you this, I told you that, and I told you that. You'll see their eyes respond to that or not, and then your follow-up is easier, and then it's more memorable. Because I work for destinations as well, and it's really hard to cover everything that they have. It's really important. I hope you all did your pre-work in researching your tour operators. But sometimes what's on those profiles or on those websites hasn't been updated. They're human like we are. So ask them what's new. Ask them why they even came here. You know, was it because Elizabeth said, if you don't, I'm going to flatten your tires back in Frankfurt? Or is it that, you know, they really are passionate about now creating crusa as a new destination? So when you find out, you know, what their goals are and what their intentions are, it's going to be easier. I have a lot of clients who just want groups, and I always have to tell them, talk to the tour operators from overseas. How does most of their business start? Starts as FIT. So even if you don't want FIT, you sometimes have to start with FIT to get to your groups. But you learn that through the discussions. I hope these are helpful. I mentioned already about asking the international which receptives they work with. Sometimes they only buy hotels through the receptive. Sometimes they only buy attractions or whatever, but that's a question to ask. We already know crusa does a great job of facilitating site inspections and FAMs, and they're literally here doing that now. But at any show or interaction, a lot of times my international offices of the tour operators that we work with will have a rep that's coming on vacation to New York. And so we'll invite their rep, or we'll invite, you know, somebody who can be that eyes and ears for the company. And so it's okay to go outside the box of the product manager. Always discuss your partners that you're all working together, because when you work good with partners in your destination, that's an indication to them that you're going to be a better partner in working with them, right? So the more you promote others, they're going to feel like this person cares not just about themselves, but they care about their partners, and hence they'll be a good partner for me. Ask them about those selling methods that they engage in, because again, being confusing, like Rich said, they're selling online, they're selling at trade shows, they're got call centers, they're doing AI generated itineraries, whatever it is. Ask them how they promote, because then you'll know how better to work with them, going back to how do we work together, right? Like some of our tour operators I work with for my clients do a lot of newsletters, and they allow me to give them videos and content for those newsletters. So another important question. Some of you, I know I'm preaching to the choir and you know this, but I think that even those of us who know certain things, like hearing it all in one session, really gets you back in your game to do a good job in those appointments. And the rest of them are, it's funny because somebody said they like this one about ranking your business cards, right? We get home and we've been gone for 3 days, and that's like being gone for 3 weeks 20 years ago. So I have my A cards, my B cards, and my C cards. Not every meeting is as good as the other one. Rank them and follow up in that order, and that's how your business will also come. And be time conscientious, as I'm trying to be, because we really want to give everybody a fair chance. I love, Scott, that you do 12-minute meetings, because they've been going down and down and down to 5 and 7 and all of this. But if it's your time to be up, because your partners think more highly of you. And then, I don't know, doing team training, ask them if you can do that, because with Zoom now, we can train anyone, anywhere, anytime. Last 2 slides before I tell you about the IITA Inbound Travel Summit, just because Lisa and I are here. But these are just summations of what I spoke about, right? When I was doing a reach across the country in the middle of COVID with tour operators, because I really wanted to know what was happening, and everything was so scary and new, there's strategy to these meetings, right? So what's your most immediate and what's your long-term strategy? And it's really important. I think it was Elliot at Bonitel said to me, have 2, because the business is coming back so wonky. Just like we heard China's delayed, but China's then going to come flurrying in, right? So what am I doing in the now with that tour operator, and what am I doing in the long term? We talked about pricing. We talked about commitment. When your stakeholders get in this business, often they think the business might come flooding, or think that, it's easy, I do this year and it just comes. But really working with the trade is a year-over-year process. It takes time, and you really need to stay in it. And I know some of you struggle with potentially hotel partners that say, nothing happened the first year. Has that happened with anyone here? Right? Yeah. So, stressing that commitment to really stay in it. If it was easy, we would all do it. It's not easy. It's called work. That's why we're all sitting here. And then really what I've heard from some of the tour operators is that sometimes their partners are not honoring contracts, and they're reverting back to being non-flexible. If we're partners, what's important to you should be important to me. What's important to me should be important to you. So I really feel like, making sure that our tourism companies who are doing this are not in it for their lull and then gone. They need to be in it for the long term, and it's really an important piece to keep driving home. If you need help, you know where to reach out. Perfecting the one-sheeter business profile. Now, when I showed that slide with all the different things about seasonality and motor coaches, parking and servicing and tour guides, for the destination, I look at so many of your one-sheeters or guides that you bring to travel trade shows. Go back to that slide, and if you can address something for each one of those little icons, you're going to have the best destination profile ever. And the case study for this and the test for this is that in New York, for Tourism Ready, 8 years, and this is also for our destinations here, this might work as well. We do this Tourism Ready program, and then there's a graduation, quote unquote, right? Because it's not a graduation, but they've done their one-pager. They have tiered pricing they can show us, and they have FIT and group and MICE sections on their one-pager. Then they're allowed to come to a travel trade event like Scott is hosting this week and meet tour operators. And when they do that, they're able to then meet the buyers. So it's like this leverage to get them to work better with you by actually connecting them to business. Does that make sense? So it's a way to say, here I'm helping you, here's implementation tactics, and then here's meeting buyers that literally will start selling you tomorrow, or at least set those wheels in motion. Last thing, I think, look at that, guys, it's 3:01, I'm so happy. I never can time these. I used to try to like say I'll talk 2 minutes on this slide and 3 on that, and it never worked. IITA has its summit with the International Inbound Operators. It's February 11th through 14th in Memphis, which I'm so excited about. But it's an affordable, intimate, effective version of what we're doing here. And as we're talking about, again, the confusion of this network and all, inbound operators, some of which are here this week, are really good partners. So with that, I want to say thank you from me. I know I covered a lot, but I hope I was clear and articulate. I hope it was some big nuggets of information you picked up to do a better job in working with the trade and having more successful appointments, because we tend to be about us, and sometimes it's about them who we can help to make us better. So thank you very much. Any questions? Thoughts? One per table. Come on. Don't let me get my whip out. What do we got? Anything? You all want to go rest, right? All right. Well, I hope it was helpful.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
Hey, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know where to go next.
All right, well, that is